Hey guys, welcome back to the Card Combo Show, episode 45 with me, Tokabilly, where we look at the weird and wonderful card combinations in the Final Fantasy TCG. This week we're going to be looking at cards of cost 5 or more. Make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get the show on the road. So, first and foremost, we're going to be looking at Kimahri from Opus 7, Rydia from Opus 13, 9 from Opus 13, Weiss from Opus 2, and Eiko from Opus 8. So first, Kimahri. So 6 CP and 9k forward with the text, the cost required to play Kimahri onto the field is reduced by 1 for each job guardian you control. The job guardians other than Kimahri you control cannot be chosen by opponent's abilities, and the category 10 characters other than Kimahri you control cannot be chosen by opponent's summons. So, quite a mixed bag, because job guardians, it is just, any guardians that could be backup or forward as well, and then you've also got category X characters, so that also could be monsters as well as backups. So it's good protection not just for your forwards, but for everything that fits into those either job guardians or category 10. Anyway, so Lulu and Waka, obviously they are both guardians, which means that they reduce the cost of Kimahri as well, which is useful because they are backups, but also the fact that they gain ability protection from Kimahri as well. Not that your opponent really wants to break Lulu, but maybe they want to dull and freeze them or something like that, just to mitigate your ability to play things. So yeah, let's at least get some protection from that as well. And then Bartz and Riku. Obviously, Bartz doesn't fit into much of it aside from the fact that he is a job guardian, but it means that he would reduce Kimahri's cost, and he does become ability proof as well. And then Riku, obviously, Gull Wings have their own kind of protection toolkit anyway, but being able to make it so that they can't be chosen by opponent summons as well. So something like Riku, where she has ability proof on her already, but she can still be targeted by summons. Having something like Kimahri there as well can also add to the protection, and as I said before, it can also protect some of your backups as well. Right, Braska's final Aeon, so he would become summon proof as well with Kimahri, and obviously Braska's already, your opponent doesn't really want to target him, so when they do target him, they're gonna have to, they're making sure it works, so giving him that little bit of protection would be problematic for your opponent. Ormi, Logos, and LeBlanc. We haven't seen these, these guys, well, decent in Opus 2, but we haven't seen them since, and I always want to revisit these guys in a deck, and I think, Kimahri might be worth it. Making it so that these guys become summon proof is decent enough, and the fact that LeBlanc can put either Ormi or Logos into the break zone to make herself so she cannot be broken as well is quite hilarious, but it just makes it so that the whole thing becomes a little harder to dismantle. Right, Weiss. When Weiss enters the field, you may play 1 ice forward of cost 3 or less from your hand onto the field. When Weiss attacks, Weiss gains plus 2,000 power until the end of the turn. He's at 6 CP, 8k. So he's a little under curve, but he gets to play something else as well. Now, with multi-element cards, it means that they are much stronger, and we're jumping from Opus 2 to Opus 13, so that's an 11 set difference, and it's a 3 CP forward White Tiger Lycine Nimbus with 9k, and it also an entry ability to dull and freeze something. That's fantastic. Obviously these guys together as well both have attack effects, which are fine, but yeah, this is more to showcasing the fact that Weiss can play some incredibly powerful cards while still being of a respectable power himself as well. Yazoo. So I really like the Remnant engine anyway, but these guys are all obviously 7 cards, which is funny because if you were to ask someone about 20 years ago who either of these guys are, they'd be like, what? There's just, they don't exist. When Yazoo enters the field, choose one character opponent controls dull it, so that means you can also dull something out the way as well, and if you've got some of the other remnants on the field, you get some additional effects. Tifa. So obviously, Tifa gives a lot of protection and buffs to your 7 characters, and you may be running an Ice Earth 7 deck, so having things like Yazoo and Weiss, so having like a Sviet's Remnants sort of mixed bag with things like Tifa and Barrett in Earth as well to kind of keep your speed up whilst also giving some protection and buffs to your field. Riku. So Weiss comes in, play Riku. Riku can then reactivate 2 characters as well, so it may not just be backups to recur some of the cost of playing Weiss, it could be forwards as well. But this is also, again, good because if you are in Ice and you're up against Ice as well and they're freezing out some of your stuff, means of reactivation, then Riku will be a good way to be able to do that. Titania, so you kind of curtail Titania's restriction by being able to play Weiss and then play Titania onto the field to then just get to choose 2 characters, dull and freeze it. Alright, Eiko, she is a 5 CP 4k forward, so incredibly small, with the text, when Eiko enters the field, you may search for one summon and add it to your hand. When Eiko is put from the field into the break zone, draw one card. So she can search you absolutely any summon, which is decent enough. And then obviously when she puts into the break zone, she gets you a card as well. So she kind of basically recurs all of her value, provided she isn't removed from the game. Like Arc, she can very much play, or she can search you Arc, because she can search you any summon, but I used to run an Arc deck, which was fun because you didn't care about your forwards actually dying, because obviously all the forwards, so when you cast Arc, all the forwards lose 8,000 power until the end of the turn. Draw one card for each forward whose power became 0 or less due to the previous effect. So obviously through Eiko, you'd actually get to draw 2 cards. That combined with the likes of little Porum, who would get you a summon back from your break zone as well. And, you know, there's plenty of other cards when they're put from the field to the break zone, especially in water, that get to draw you cards or recur you cards. So combining cards like that with Arc is fantastic. Doga. So being able to, again, cast Eiko to then search you any summon you want, and then combine that with Doga's attack. It means that if Doga attacks, if you have 9 or more summons in your break zone, you can cast any one summon. So it doesn't matter what the summon is, so you could play Eiko to then search you something like Raiden, then you attack with Doga, who triggers, and you cast Raiden. Pretty good. Summoner. So I really like the summoner. It doesn't get played a huge amount, but the fact that it can just dull and break and play any summon of cost 6 or less is really good, especially with some of the more recent summons as well. Again, this is another card that will get better with every set, because as power creep intensifies and you get more and more powerful summons for even lower cost, you'll end up getting some crazy things happening. So yeah, to be able to just break a backup to cast a summon of 6 or less is awesome. Obviously you can play Eiko to search you that summon, to then break your backup to then play that summon immediately. Deleter. So there's obviously not as big a focus as running as many big cards these days, because you, with the likes of multi-element, some of the forwards are much more powerful and they don't have a high CP cost. It's just restricted by the elements you have to pay. But that doesn't mean that you aren't having a huge amount of them played anyway. You do occasionally, I mean, as a rule of thumb, you don't really want to have more than, like, I don't know, 8 5 CP or more cards in your deck, unless your deck is really good at finding the cards you need and be able to play them and very cost efficient. But still, there are always those times when your hand clunks, you've got nothing but like 5, 6 or 7 CP cards in hand, and you've only got like 2 backups, you're like, I can't do anything without discarding my entire hand. So yeah, anyway, sorry, I'm going on a tangent here. Being able to play Deleter to choose a 5 CP forward that the opponent controls, to then put Eiko into the break zone, you get a card back from that, and then you get to break a 5 CP forward your opponent controls. And the chances are they will have paid a lot more for, well, I say paid a lot more for, they will have paid the full cost for their forward and not get anything back from it, whereas Eiko obviously gets you someone she enters and gets you a card when she leaves, so it's really good value for money. Value for crystals, I guess. And Rydia. So when Rydia enters the field, place one summon counter on Rydia, remove one summon counter from Rydia, cast one summon other than Light or Dark from your hand without paying the cost, and then obviously you can dull her, choose a summon if it deals damage, increase that damage by 1,000. So obviously Eiko could search you any summon, but don't make it a Light or Dark, so don't use Arc basically. And then if Rydia's already been played onto the field, you can just at any point remove a counter, play that summon. So just like with the summoner backup previously, just being able to play Eiko with Rydia already ready to go, it means that you can search yourself any nice big summon and just whoop, get rid of that counter, cast a big summon. So, you know, again, the likes of Raiden, 9 CP Bahamut, or, you know, if you're in a bit of a pinch and all your backups are frozen or whatever, you can just cast Diablos, reactivate everything if you need to do. You know, there's literally any summon, and again, Rydia can just cast a summon, it doesn't matter what the element is, and Eiko can search you any summon. And finally, Rydia. No, not finally, I think she's the penultimate card, sorry. Yeah, Rydia, so I've already gone over her text. So Luca, she has the Lightning Brainbuster S ability, is a hell of a name, isn't it? Which is an S, fire, and a dull. Dull, one active card named Rydia. Choose one forward, deal 10,000 damage. So obviously Rydia does have her own dull ability, but to be able to use her counter ability to cast a summon, doesn't matter if she's dull or not. So, you know, she can still be dulled through Luca's S ability and still use that counter to cast a summon. But yeah, I think paying, what, an S, a fire, and dulling 2 backups, that's fine to be able to deal 10k to a forward. But then you've also got to remember the fact that you can do this, deal 10k to something, and then also cast a summon with Rydia to be able to do something else as well. Vermilion Bird Lassie Kaituna. This is a bit of a weird one because obviously they're two quite high-costed backups, but Vermilion Bird Lassie increases all damage of fire summons by 1,000, not to mention the fact she also gets to play or search and play a summon when she enters the field. But you could actually, I mean, let's say you've already got Rydia on the field, and you then play Vermilion Bird Lassie, and you cast just a summon that deals 8k something. Let's go with an Ifrit. That will then deal 9k, and then you can dull Rydia, so then it becomes 10k that it's dealing. So these two combined together means that you can deal quite a substantial amount of damage to your opponent's board, especially, opponent's forwards, but with board-wide effects, so something like Ifrita, these two combined means that they can actually deal a lot more to the field as well. And then again, also you can use Rydia to cast some fire summons to deal a hefty amount of damage. And you know, Rydia, you just remove the counter and she can cast any summon. So something like Phoenix, 7 CP Phoenix means it'll deal 10k if you are able to dull Rydia with Vermilion Bird on the field as well, which is really good. And then also recur a forward onto the field. Mumba! So, choose one forward, deal damage equal to its power minus 1,000. But if you use Rydia to increase the damage it deals by 1,000, that means it will deal its damage its power in damage. So, Mumba is basically, unless the forward cannot be broken, or they have a damage reduction effect, Mumba's going to kill with Rydia. So basically, Mumba becomes a 3 CP, choose one forward, break a forward. Eiko, so not the same Eiko as before, but again, kind of just showing that you can just dull, search any summon, add it to your hand, just get rid of a counter and cast that summon. So obviously that is effectively 3 CP to be able to use Eiko's S ability, but 3 CP to search yourself a 9 CP summon. And again, Rydia doesn't have to be dulled for this effect. You could then just cast a 9 CP summon for effectively only paying 3. That's really, really good. And Braska, obviously this applies to the previous Eiko as well. All your summoners cost 1 CP less, and that includes your backups as well. So Rydia actually becomes 5 CP, so it becomes more akin to a Jidu Marujidu, which can cast a summon when it enters the field. But yeah, being able to just reduce the amount like Rydia costs you, and not to mention the fact that there's all the other summoners as well, just being able to search you summons. And like I said, the Eiko from before, not just this Eiko, but the forward one as well. And finally, 9. So, he's a niche card, right? There's a limited amount of things you can do with him because ultimately he's a class 0 cadet. They are super tribal, but there are still some fun things nonetheless. So he's a 6 CP lightning fire forward with 9k power, so he's on curve. You can dull 1 active fire job class 0 cadet forward and 1 active lightning job class 0 cadet forward instead of paying this CP cost to cast 9. Now, this doesn't mean that you can cast, or you can just dull those 2 to play them onto the field on your opponent's turn, because it still is restricted by the rules of the game. So it has to be on your turn. And then when 9 enters the field or attacks, choose one forward opponent controls. Until the end of the turn, it loses 2,000 power for each job class 0 cadet you control. Now that also includes the backups as well. So if you've got 2 backups and then 1 forward, and then you play 9, that's a total of 4 cadets, including himself. So that's minus 8, which is pretty good. So, King, obviously you can just discard 1 job class 0 cadet. That's going to get old really quickly. To be able to play King onto the field, so King then effectively only becomes a 2 CP forward, and then you could dull King, and if you've also got a lightning forward or lightning 0 cadet on the field, you can just dull those 2 to be able to play 9 onto the field as well. And obviously King counts towards 9's entry ability as well. And if you're playing 9 through that effect, that means that there'll be another one as well, so you're going to be getting at least 3 counts worth of his entry effects, and not to mention any backups as well. Okay, Cease. So, when Cease attacks, choose one forward opponent controls. Until the end of the turn, it loses 1,000 power for each job class 0 cadet character you control. So obviously these 2 could party attack, and let's say you've got 2 cadet character backups and 2, obviously these 2 is your forwards. That would be a total of 12k minus to 1 forward, which is really, really good. And that means you can put that forward from the field into the break zone. Doesn't matter if it can't be broken, it just gets put there. Obviously you can dull Cease as well to be able to play 9 alongside another fire forward as well. And Sync. So, fire, dull, choose one forward. If possible, it must block this turn. And then we've got Bunker Beast, so choose one blocking forward. It loses 2,000 power till the end of the turn. So let's say you've got Sync and a couple of cadet backups. You attack with 9, it loses 8k power. You force it to block with Sync, and then use Bunker Beast. When it does block, 2 minus its power more. So this means that Sync can actually, 9 can target a 10k forward. And even if you brain fart. Even if you brain fart, yeah, even though 9 wouldn't survive, because using 9's ability and then bunker piece as well, it's actually going to 0 power and then put it into the break zone. Now, this is only on the basis that you only have 2 cadet backups. There's actually plenty of cadet backups out there, and you could easily make it so that you just have 5 cadet backups. So every time 9 attacks, you're minusing 10k regardless. Actually, no, it'd be minusing 12k because 9 himself is a cadet. But yeah, using sync to make it so that a forward has to block, and then you target that forward using bunker pieces. There's more ways to be able to reduce that forward's power. Okay, Ninja. So when Ninja enters the field, choose one forward. It gains, when this forward attacks, choose one forward. It deals 5,000 damage until the end of the turn. So maybe 9 doesn't have quite enough oomph to be able to take something out when it attacks. Adding Ninja to the stack as well. So let's say 9 was just doing, I don't know, minus 6k to something. That combined with Ninja would actually mean that you are doing a total of 11k power swing, which is pretty good. Again, bear in mind that the 5k damage and the 6 power loss are separate, but still, it's a good combo, and you know, this allows you to be able to run something like 9 in not as heavy a class 0 cadet deck. So you may have maybe a couple of cadet backups that synergize with 9, but you don't want to go down that whole route of just only having cadets. So having stuff like Ninja kind of supplements that, and means that he still has quite a bit of power when he does attack as well. Chalinka and Cyclops. So Chalinka can obviously make it so that 9 can attack twice, and then Cyclops can minus 8,000 power to your opponent's board. So that's pretty good. So yeah, you can attack once with 9 and minus 8k to something, but maybe it's not enough to kill it. And then cast Cyclops. So that will then be a total of minus 11k, which will kill that forward. Maybe your opponent's got another forward, but it's dull, so it can't attack. You can then attack again with 9 to then minus 8,000 power again to that forward. So it's a nice way to be able to deal multiple sets of power loss to a couple of your opponent's forwards. And, you know, even though 9 may be dealing or removing quite a lot of power, Cyclops just kind of tops it off and makes sure that all the forwards lose quite a bit of power. Cool. Quite a quick one this week, to be honest. I was looking at a lot of high-costed cards, but I wanted to try and not focus on so many of the heavily played ones, because there are a lot of good high-costed cards, obviously, but I wanted to focus on some more niche cards. Anyway, yeah, but if you've got any other categories or, you know, types of card that you'd like me to look into, so maybe I'll do an episode on only common cards. That might be the next one. I'd like to do a bit of a pauper episode, or only, I don't know, standard units, or only cards from Final Fantasy Legends, I don't know. But yeah, anyway, make sure to stay safe out there, folks. Be lucky, and I'll see you in the next video.